Stardate 12262023. Captain Federico Joaquin has recently discovered an unusual signal out in deep space. There shouldn't really be anybody out here, as the U.S.S. Pathfinder is supposedly the first Starfleet ship to actually fly out here. After assembling a crew and transporting down to the station, he loses contact with the U.S.S. Pathfinder. Something strange is going on here, as his ship has been rendered inoperable and communications have been cut. So what will happen this time? Well, let's find out. So, the first thing that we're going to do is talk about NPCs, and specifically the crew that Captain Joaquin has brought over from the U.S.S. Pathfinder. I didn't actually do this during play in the last video, but I did do this in between, so I've actually gone ahead and created 3 NPCs that are accompanying Captain Joaquin on his journey to this station. So we have a Deltan male who is the Senior Chief Engineer. His name is Dro. We have a Shindi Arboreal, Chief Specialist Engineer, Jalik, also male. And then we have a human female Chief Specialist Medical, Ursula. Now I've taken these ranks from the book from page 132, and I'm not really specifically sure if I got the actual namings right for these ranks, but here we are. I know that I have a Deltan, a Shindi Arboreal, and a human accompanying Captain Federico Joaquin. And I figured that it would be best to have 2 engineers, that he would take 2 engineers at the minimum just to kind of go over and see what's going on with the station and whatever reactors that they have. And then, of course, having a medical specialist just in case if there's anybody at the station who is in need of medical attention or anything like that, or any of the crew members who are beamed over who might need medical attention. And so that's what we have. We have 4, including Captain Joaquin, at this station. Here we are in Act 2, we're doing Scene 1, and I figure that now that the whole cast, or rather the away team cast, is assembled on Station 53, it would be best if they actually try to figure out what's going on with the station. That way they can figure out what's going on with the ship, possibly. Who knows? They might not even be connected, or they might be. But one thing Joaquin is going to do is keep a focused mind and stick to the task at hand. He's going to trust his crew on the Pathfinder to take care of business and figure out what's going on and things like that. Beginning with Captain Federico Joaquin, he's going to take his away team and they are going to go down to the actual reactor room for the station. Now, one thing that I do want to find out is if the station head, let's see, what is his name? Tilarg, if he is hiding anything, if he's actually withdrawing information, or if he's nefarious, because if I remember correctly, our incident is to save and arrest, and so that means that there's something fishy going on. Now, I think it's very probable that they are hiding something, so that's going to be a 1 through 15 is a yes, and a 16 through 20 that it's a no. So let's see what we find out. A 9, so that would be a yes. They are hiding something, but we don't quite know what it is just yet. That's something that Captain Joaquin is going to have to uncover this time around. So he accompanies his away team to the reactor room, as well as Tilarg. Now, are they going to, or rather, I guess my question is this: can they actually see this plant creature in the reactor room? Is there something going on in this reactor room that involves the plant creature? And I think that is going to be somewhat probable this time. So 1 through 12 is a yes, 13 through 20 is a no. 5, so yes. As soon as they walk in, probably Tilarg is like, oh no, you don't need to go in there, or something along those lines. They do see that there are tendrils, maybe roots, because we have a plant cosmozoan, and it's kind of spread throughout the reactor room and like fused itself, or maybe attached itself to the actual reactors here. Now we need to figure out what exactly they're going to do. So why don't we do this? We have some NPCs here who are going to, well, they're not technically going to roll, but we are going to get them involved somehow. So on page 201 in the rules of play, there are 3 different ways to get your NPC crews involved. The first one is to use the ship's department rank to represent the crew. So we'll basically just use the ship stats and roll systems plus department for these NPCs, whichever one we're doing. The second way is to make character sheets for non-player characters, although this is kind of a one-shot, so I don't really want to take a whole lot of time to do that. Although if this was going to be a longer game where I have established characters, this might be the approach that I'd want to pursue. The third way is to use a probability matrix. So this is the simplest way. You ask a yes or no question and determine if it's probable or not, or just like how you would do a regular matrix, and then you'd roll for that, and that's how you determine if they're successful or not. I don't really like that whole simplified version, but if you had an unimportant NPC who's doing something, that would be the way that I would do it. For now, I'm going to use the ship's department rank to represent the crew. So we'll be rolling systems plus department. And so we're going to have our engineer away team. So that would be Dro and Angelique. They are going to start examining the reactor. So I think that's going to be engines plus engineering. So that's going to be a 10 target number. And so we're going to take our 2d20 and we're going to go ahead and roll for that. All right, we have a 7 and a 16. So that is a success with no momentum. So it's pretty obvious here that these plant roots are what's interfering with the station's power. And this seems to follow the same pattern as what was reported before comms were cut from the Pathfinder. So we kind of can assume that there is something connected. Maybe this plant has reached out to the Pathfinder, or maybe there's another Cosmozoan that's come out there to take over the Pathfinder. We don't know its origin quite yet. In order to do that, we're going to need we could let our medical specialists kind of examine and see what they can come up with, although I don't really think that would be their area of expertise. So I think if we're going to have our chief medical specialist, Ursula, try to figure out what's going on with these tendrils, I think that she's going to do a scan. So if we're using our ship's system plus department, that's going to be sensors plus science for an 11 total. So let's go ahead and roll that and see what we've come up with. Oof. So that's going to be a 17 and a 19. That is unfortunate. But I think something is going to happen as well. So as Ursula is observing or scanning this Cosmozoan plant, I think Talarg is going to take this opportunity to kind of surprise everybody, especially the captain. He seems uneasy at Ursula scanning the Cosmozoan plant thing, and so he's going to pull out a phaser and he's going to go ahead and stop them here. So I think this is a very fine time to talk about combat. So at times you may come under attack. Attacks can come from a variety of sources: people, animals, ships, spatial anomalies, robots, etc. Therefore, you have been given training to keep yourself safe from harm. Fight scenes in Star Trek are rarely prolonged bouts that monopolize most of an episode. Combat is swift, decisive, and potent. So what happens here is we're going to determine what our opponent's HP is, which I think for this one, we're just going to determine that it's at 3. We have 3 hits as well, and I think we're going to go ahead and take a hit because we have been surprised. And so I think Talarg is going to try to take out the captain, but he spins just in time to get out of the way of the blast, and that's when things are going to get heated. And so what we do is we're going to roll our rolls for combat. If we get a success, we hit the opponent for 1 damage, or we get a success, 1 success, or 1 hit on our opponent. If we get momentum, we can use that in a variety of ways. So we can add an additional hit to the opponent. We can remove 1 hit. We can re-roll a 1d20 on failure. We can create an advantage, or we can cancel a threat. And if we have any threats, we can add 1 hit, remove 1 hit from opposition. Next task is difficult 2, or we can create a complication. And there's a nice chart on 203 about how conflict is supposed to flow and all of that. So we already have a hit on Captain Joaquin. So let's go ahead and roll for our attack, which I think is going to be, well, it's definitely going to be security something. I think he's going to be daring on this one. He's going to be reckless in this attack because nobody attacks his crew and gets away with it. Something else that I've noticed, one of our values is sometimes the only way to survive is to be the last one standing. We haven't really talked about this yet, but we can use or challenge our value. So we can use the value if we agree with it, or we can challenge our value if we somehow go against it. So once we use it, we cross it out, and at the end of the current mission, we get to assign another value for us. And we'll always have 4 or something along those lines. What do we do, or what do we get if we challenge or use a value? When you use or challenge a value, you can choose to either gain momentum or remove a threat. You cannot gain momentum if you already possess momentum, because remember, you can only have maximum of 1. Threat removed in this way is spent and gone. You do not need to introduce a complication or increase difficulty. Is it worth it to use it now? No, because we're not in any real danger. He's not backed up into a corner where that's going to become relevant. But it could be. So let's go ahead and roll our 2d20 and see what we have. We have daring plus security, so that's going to be 14 total, which is actually a really nice number. So let's see what we get. 16 and 19. Oh boy, that is not good. So we are going to take a hit. So that means we have 2 on our current harm track, I guess is what you'll call it. We'll call it the harm track. Sure. How about that? So now we are kind of backed into a corner. So he tries to get in close so he can do something about it. And I forgot to mention that we do have hand-to-hand combat, but at the same time, I also don't think that we are in a position to do some fisticuffs just yet because our opponent has a phaser or a ranged weapon. And so remember, if we have a focus that applies to a certain situation, like in this instance, we could use hand-to-hand combat for this encounter. If we roll equal to or under our discipline rank, then we immediately get some sort of an advantage. So we can roll for the advantage or we can create it. And it's woven into the narrative. So I think this would apply because we're trying to get in there and smack him. So I can already think of an advantage that we can get. So we're going to go ahead and do daring plus security because we have to do something about this before our companions get hurt. So 14 is our target number. Ooh, look at that. We got 2 8s. That's very interesting. An 8 and an 8. So that is a success. That's actually 2 successes. So we do get momentum this time around. What we're going to do, because we have an extra success, I think we're going to go ahead and remove 1 hit. So he comes up and he just attacks Tilarg. He basically gets his second wind here and gets the drop on Tilarg and manages to strike him up close, dealing 1 hit while getting rid of 1 of our hits. So that second wind is how we're going to explain that we get rid of a hit. So we're neck and neck right now. So we each have 1 hit. So let us go ahead and roll again to see what happens. 14 is our target number because we are... Actually, you know what? This one's kind of interesting because we did daring to try to get control of the situation. But now that we have some control, can't we just use control with security? So that would make our target number 16. So I think in this instance, now that we're up close and personal with Talarg, we're going to assume control of the situation. So our target number is 16 this time. All right, 8 and 18. So we do get a success. That is going to be another hit on our opponent as we just kind of start wailing in on him with our punches. Maybe a kick or two. I mean, Kirk has thrown a kick or two once in a while, right? And now that we're in control, we're definitely going to go ahead and roll one last time. Hopefully, maybe. So our target number is still 16. Our discipline is at 4, so if we get 4 or under, we do get an advantage. All right, and there we go, 17 and 2. So that 2 is going to generate an advantage for us. And quite honestly, I think that this one is going to be... Actually, I think this is going to be too broad for us, so we can choose. I definitely don't want to roll because of its broadness, but I think that what we're going to do is actually create an advantage. And I want to say that our advantage is that because that we've taken out the ringleader of this operation, that nobody else is going to want to try to attack us. Or maybe that they've had a change of heart for some reason. Yeah, I think change of heart probably fits best. That they realize that their lives are in danger and that Talarg was the main force that was driving them to secrecy or whatever. And now that he's been taken out, they're like, oh yes, please just take him away. And they're going to try to fix this. So I guess the obvious question now is, why was Talarg holding these people into secrecy? Like, what's his game here? And I've got a couple of options. So let's go ahead and roll on the yes-no probability matrix. Did he have a hand in creating the Cosmozoan plant creature? Because remember, this station, I believe, is some sort of a research station. I don't know if we've actually determined that. It's a secret intelligence outpost, supposedly friendly. Well, not anymore. In deep space. Did they have something to do with its creation? And I'm actually going to leave this 50-50. So yes, he had something to do with creating it, or raising it, or something along those lines. He had something to do with how it was formed. So that makes perfect sense here. And of course, he would want to protect it at all costs. And now that thing is going to drain the station. So now we need to figure out what we can do to help the station, or rather get rid of the plant creature so that it's no longer draining power to the station. And I think that one is going to be another role for us. Let's do weapons. Since we're dealing with a plant creature, this might be weapons science. So that's going to be a 10 roll to see what our engineers and maybe our medical personnel can come up with. Oof. Oh boy. So we do have a 2. Now, the cool thing is, our department is at Science 3. So we already get an advantage. That 20, though, is going to generate a threat of some kind. And this is actually the perfect instance where I think one is going to cancel out the other. Our advantage is going to cancel out the threat here. So I think that they're going to come up with a way that will enable them to drive the plant creature away. And I think that they're going to come up with something flashy. Probably maybe like some sort of an EMP blowout that's going to, I don't know, supercharge the plant creature. You know, you eat too much, you explode kind of a deal. And so I think that's what they're going to do in this case. And so they're going to rig the reactors to basically dump all of its, or basically to supercharge what's left and just electrify or send out like an EMP pulse to the surrounding area. And so the plant creature has been dealt with on the station, and I think that the radius of the blast is going to be enough that it's also going to affect whatever's happening on the Pathfinder. And so I think what's going to happen here is that, well, this is going to be the end of Act 2, and now we're going to start going into Act 3.
Captain's Log Supplemental. My suspicions were correct. Tilarg was, indeed, hiding something. Upon entering the reactor room on Station 53, I had Dro and Jalik try to figure out what was causing the reactors to lose power. We quickly realized that something, a sort of a plant creature, had attached itself to the reactors and was actively draining power. The same thing must have happened to the Pathfinder, but given our outdated machinery, it lost power at a faster rate. I had Ursula inspect the plant creature, and this upset Tilarg enough to attack. I managed to disarm and apprehend Tilarg on my own. Thankfully, Dro, Jalik, and Ursula remained unharmed, although I am a little bruised myself. Such a minor price to pay for the safety of my crew. The trio has recommended to me that they can overload the reactors to create an EMP blast that should destroy the creature. It almost seems a shame to have to kill something we do not yet understand, but at this point, we can either kill it or wait for our own death.
So thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I'm kind of thinking that maybe there might be some ship combat in the next act. So feel free to give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.